Good morning and welcome to the Merced County Association of Realtors debate for District 4 Board of Supervisors, Merced County. My name is Andy Krodick and I'm the Government Affairs Director for our association. On behalf of our President Skip Hinman, we'll welcome all the candidates here this morning. Today's debate is a partnership between our association and a Merced Sunstar. It's produced by J.D. Sanders Company and Associates and will be broadcast on YouTube, Comcast, and put on the Merced Sunstar's website. Before we start our debate, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are. We're about 540 realtors right here in Merced County. We're supported by our wonderful business partners and affiliates who are title folks, escrow folks, appraisers, home inspectors, termite inspectors, and loan officers, insurance agents, and other industry specialists. Our association is a pro-property rights organization, pro-home ownership, pro-business, and we stand up for quality of life issues such as safe neighborhoods. We don't, however, just sell houses. We're a broad cross-section of the community. We're involved in our communities. We're Rotarians, Lions Club members, Kiwanis members. We're planning commissioners, city council members. We're liberal and we're conservative. We support Merced County and we give back to our community. We're the single largest contributor to the Merced Salvation Army. We support the Merced Rescue Mission, Merced County Food Bank, and the Boys and Girls Club of Merced. We also give scholarships to young high school and college students, and in some cases give down payment assistance. In all, we contribute over $60,000 a year, not from our dues, but out of the pockets of the folks you see in this room. So now that you know who we are, let's talk about the rules of debate. Each of you will be given a 2-minute opening to speak about why you should be elected to District 4 Board of Supervisors. Then we'll take some questions, or we'll all ask some questions, and then we'll take some questions from the floor, and then you'll have a 1-minute closing. I have the timer at 2 minutes. When you hear the bell, just wrap up complete your thoughts, wrap up your opening remarks. So we'll start to my right with Mr. Lloyd Pereira. Mr. Pereira, the floor is yours.
Okay. So thank you for inviting us here this morning and taking time out of your day to learn about us and what our thoughts are for Merced County. I'm a lifelong resident. I was born here. My dad was born here, and Merced is very important to me. And the reason why I decided to run for supervisor is I believe that we have some issues that are facing our county, and I think some of the direction maybe isn't the right direction that we've been going in. We have big issues. We have water, we have public safety, we have vagrancy and homeless, and it seems like everybody talks about it, but not a lot gets done when it comes right down to it. So my plan is that I have a vision for Merced. We have a jewel in the UC. We have some area between Merced and the UC that is just ripe for bringing industry, bringing businesses, tech companies to Merced County. We have a booming agricultural industry. We have an opportunity there to facilitate more processing to come to town and industrial type of businesses. And I think the planning department moves slow and maybe impedes at times that development. And I'd like to see us focus on changing that process and making it more efficient. And in fact, one thought that I have is that the supervisors need to get a report from planning, and it should be the number of days a permit's been from the time it was applied until it gets approved. And if we can monitor that, we'll know if we're heading in the right direction or the wrong direction. I've been a man of service for our community. In fact, my son has given a tour to 56 kindergartners from Planada School this morning, and I hated not being there, but I'm fortunate to have great kids, and they pitch right in when we need to. So anyways, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Rich Ford.
Hi, Rich Ford.
I guess this one's not on.
It's on.
Are we on? Okay. I'm Rich Ford. I'm owner and operator of Ford's Farm Supply in Gustine. We recently celebrated 45 years in business. My dad started the company as a tractor repair shop, and after I graduated from high school, I started a farm supply store over there. I've served on the city council in Gustine for 24 years, 8 years as mayor, and I'm currently serving on the Merced County Planning Commission as a District 4 representative, and we're not the ones holding up the process. We'll blame that on staff, but they are working hard to push through the regulations, and regulations have been killing our industry and ability to bring businesses to Merced County. But I've been married 37 years to my high school sweetheart, Lori, and we run the business together. I have a daughter and son-in-law, Jarrett McKenzie Martin, and my 4-year-old granddaughter, who's the light of my life. And with my experience in different forms of government, from Recreation Commission, Planning Commission, City Council, I felt that I had a lot to offer to the Board of Supervisors. I understand the budgets. I've worked in the private sector. I know what it's like to run a business and try to foresee the future and try to cut costs when you need to avoid getting yourself in trouble. Unfortunately, government agencies don't seem to be able to foresee that. They spend every dime when the times are good, and then as soon as they hit a slump, they can't keep up with the services that they need to provide. So as a county supervisor, it would be my goal to try to keep a depreciation fund so that our roads don't get into the situation they're in, and so we don't lose sheriff's deputies during the slump, that we can't be full staffed, and try to build back our infrastructure and build our public safety back to where it should be, to the service levels it should be. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Fidel Cervantes, you're up.
Well, I'm going to talk loud whether or not I need this microphone, but good morning, everyone. My name is Fidel Cervantes. I am also a candidate for County Supervisor in District 4. I was born and raised in the small town of Delhi, California, where since 2011 I've had the privilege of representing my community on the school board, and as well as the last 4 years serving as the school board chair. Basically, when it comes to this particular race and why I decided to jump in, a lot of it came down to the conversations that I had with people throughout the district, whether I'm in my hometown of Delhi or Winton, whether I go to a community event in Snelling, all the way to the west side in Gustine. It's clear that in Merced County we have a lot of potential that we're just not tapping. There's a lot of optimism as far as where we can head and which direction we can take to get there. However, it's going to take a bit more than just leadership. It's going to take some ingenuity. It's going to take some fresh blood to really make things work. Now, I'm proud of the service that I've been able to do for my community for almost 5 years now, and I'm hoping to bring a better, stronger sense of ingenuity to the county, bringing both my experience in local government and as a proud graduate of the University of California, Merced, to know that if we can really turn the tides for the next decade, we can really build towards a future that's not only great for us, but for our loved ones, especially our youth, and for generations to come. So I thank you for having me, and I look forward to responding to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mobley, Jack Mobley, you're up.
I'm Jack Mobley, running obviously for 4th District. A little bit about myself, originally from Tennessee, ended up out here in the Air Force. I did 22 years in the active and reserve Air Forces, did Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and retired in 2003 as Lieutenant Colonel. 26 years ago, I started a business. At the time, it was a Service Master franchise. It was a janitorial business. I started to put Southeast Asian congregation in my church at First Baptist to put them to work, kind of a win-win situation. I end up with a business and they end up with jobs, and over the years we've put about 2,000 people to work. A lot of them folks that needed a second chance or a first chance, and they didn't know the language or the culture, and we were able to reach out and put them to work. And there's nothing that turns my crank more than giving somebody a job and giving them their dignity and their pride back, and it's better than money to me. Merced County is an interesting place. We have a lot of diversity. We have a lot of opportunity that's not tapped. We are a diamond in the rough in the middle of the state that is now the most impoverished state in the union. We are the murder capital of California in Merced County. Public safety, infrastructure, that's what we need. If we can create an environment where people are safe in their person and their property, free to exercise their constitutional rights, the private sector will come alive in Merced County and will rejuvenate the economy. We need people on the Board of Supervisors that think this year, but more important, think 20, 30 years down the road. And I don't think that we've had that. We have to plan for the growth that's coming to Merced County. We need a more diverse economy. Ag is always king. It's always going to be king. But there's so much more that we can do with the UC Merced to diversify and keep those kids here and give them opportunities in Merced County.
Thank you. Ramon Prado.
Hello, my name is Ramon Prado. I've lived here all my life, specifically in Delhi. I come from a family of field workers. I just want to be frank. Since I could remember, we have had no representation in Hillmar, Delhi, and Winton, and that's why it has spiraled out of control. Now we have the presence of a Mexican drug cartel in Delhi, and that's a reality that I have to live with. I'm a survivor of gang violence and, you know, the drug epidemic, from methamphetamine to now heroin that's coming around, and it's the lack of representation. We have been marginalized, and that's the reality. So I'm here with the perspective of someone that's worked with kids. I've been an educator for about 10 years now, and I know what needs to be done. We need to make sure our kids are safe by supporting them with gang interventions, education, after-school programs, giving them education that works so they get a high school diploma as well as a certificate when they graduate. They can hit the ground running and start working. We need to give our kids the opportunity to succeed, and we're setting ourselves up for failure. We have been since I can remember. So I feel like I'm coming in with the as an outsider, ready to fix what needs to be done, because I've been in the trenches and I've been suffering these issues. So I feel like if you were to vote for me on June 7th, you can get the perspective of someone that understands what our problems truly are, and keep our kids are first. We need to make sure they're safe first, so that way everybody can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with Mr. Ford. Let's talk about the murder rate. A couple weeks ago, I did have lunch with Sheriff Warnke, and he reiterated that we're #1 in murder rate per capita in the state of California, which is a horrible distinction. We have more murders in Fresno County, which is 4 times the population. Even with recent hires, the sheriff is still responding to sheriff calls. I mean, he's out there doing calls for service. Do you have a plan in place to get more resources to the sheriff and help him fight this crime and help him get us off that #1 murder rate? Mr. Ford.
Yeah, that seems to be the topic of every forum we go to, is the fact that the Sheriff's Department's understaffed. They're going to hire up to their full staffing levels, which at this point in time with our crime rates and everything is still not enough. We need several more sheriffs. On the west side, the District 4, you've got Delhi and Winton and Hillmar that are unincorporated communities and don't have full-time sheriff's coverage. In the city of Gustine, we have our own police department, and it's quite expensive to have. It's 70% of our annual budget, to general fund budget, to be able to fund a full-time police department. The only way we're going to do it in the rural Merced County and to stop some of this crime is we need a county-wide public safety assessment district that they use. Similar counties use it in fire safety or sheriff's departments, and that would fund on a wide basis with roughly 80,000 homes in Merced County, not counting the commercial districts. If it was $200 per year per parcel, would raise millions of dollars to go towards funding the sheriff's department at a full staff, at a staffing level higher than it is right now, have a robust gang task force and homicide task force, and you're going to just have to drive the criminals out of the county. The cities are already doing it. They're pushing these guys out into the rural areas because they know the sheriffs can't respond quick enough. So now they're ending up in the communities like Delhi and Winton and out in the rural areas to commit their crimes and process their drugs. So that's my plan.
Okay, thank you. So you have a plan. Mr. Cervantes, do you have a plan to fight the crime?
Well, I think over the past month and a half, when you have constant drive-by shootings occurring right in front of a school, an elementary school, the very school that I went through, and the very block that I was raised by my babysitter, you take it very personally when it comes to the issue of gang violence and the drugs and the cartels. So in terms of the staffing situation, you understand that when it comes to negotiations, it's a give and take. You're all in business in some way, shape, or form, so you understand. Now, the reality of the situation is a lot of it is going to come down to compensation. And it's not just a matter of paying someone a higher salary, but what tends to happen is at times we pay someone a higher salary, but in return we expect that same employee to contribute more in terms of their insurance, for example. So it's kind of evens itself out. Really, when it comes down to it, we have to ensure that as far as the deputies are concerned, that they're getting an increase in take-home pay. That's one step. The other thing is when it comes to gang violence, a lot of it is something that builds up over the time, the years. The lost child of today ends up being the gang member of tomorrow. And so it comes down to what we're doing for our youth as well, whether you're supporting and working in tandem with the different school districts and after-school programs, or as a county, just investing in the things that we feel are important, like mental health, like parks and recreation, and making sure that we have robust programs set in place to ensure that we're doing the best possible thing we can to make sure that our youth have a more successful future.
Well, it sounds like you have, you're heading in the right direction, that you want the sheriff's departments to have more resources. Do you have a plan to get them more resources? I mean, where's that money going to come from?
Well, as I was mentioning, it comes down to negotiation. So if it's a general fund matter, well, you're going to have to make the money happen somehow. I think one of the common responses people get from their supervisors is there's never enough money. There's never enough money. There's always an allocation somewhere. It's just a matter of what your priorities are. So in this case, the priority is very clear when I discuss with constituents throughout the district. Public safety and infrastructure tend to be the 1 and 2. Pet projects can kind of go to the wayside until we can get this gang situation fixed.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Mobley.
As everybody said, public safety is number one. We have to have a stronger, more vibrant sheriff's department. We have to recognize that we are in competition for the labor pool, which is the deputies. We have to make their salaries and benefits to the point to where we can compete with these other counties and keep them from departing, keep that knowledge, that experience here in Merced County. That is the key to our financial development, to our economic development, is to provide a safe place, and it's the number one priority of government. I want to crawl through the budget line by line and make sure we're spending money efficiently. If that's the number one priority in our county, that should be the number one priority in our budgeting process. I don't feel I am in the position to tell Sheriff Warnke or Norm Andrade or the chief in Gustine how to do their job. They're the professionals that know how to fight crime. They need to tell me what I need to do to enable them to do their jobs with overwhelming force and safety for their officers. As far as funding it, I believe the money's there. We just need to reprioritize our budgeting process, make sure that we're spending your tax dollars more wisely. Every time you turn around, somebody's talking about a new tax, a new half-cent sales tax, a new whatever tax for public safety or infrastructure. We got to spend our money along the priorities that we need to spend to make Merced County a better place. If it comes down to an assessment like what Rich is talking about, I would support that. If there's no other money available, I would support that. As part of that, it's a small token, but the $40,000 that each supervisor gets every year, for me, it's going to the Sheriff's Department right off the bat. I'm not going to nickel and dime it with sidewalks here or a new roof there. It's going to the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Prado.
Well, the county lives beyond its means. We spend money that we lost what our priorities are. As realtors, I'm sure you guys know the cost of ink and paper. If we simply become a paperless county, think about the tens of thousands of dollars we can save just with that alone. There's loans offered to dairies for $1.4 million. Think about how many deputies you can put on the street with that money. The supervisors get about, in total, $200,000. Think about what that money can do for rec programs for our youth. We have the money. We're just not using it wisely. And if you're asking where are we going to get the money to fund the sheriffs, just with that dairy money alone, we can give sheriffs raises that they need. I believe that the sheriffs should have the best pay in our county because they experience the worst of our county. And it shouldn't even be a negotiation or better pay or even comparable, competitive pay. It should be the best pay, period. And we do have the money. We just need to find out what our priorities are as a county and buckle down on this crazy, reckless spending that we're doing.
Great, thank you. Mr. Pereira.
You know how sometimes you watch the correspondents out, you know, and they've got to wait for the mic to go live. Anyways, I feel a little bit like that today. So, but more seriously, the negotiations between the supervisors and the DSA has not gone well. And the supervisors, have put a Me Too clause in some of their other contracts. And so what they give the deputies is larger than what they're offering the deputies. And so there's a bit of a quandary there. But, my belief is that we've got to pay the deputies. When you're real estate agents. So when you go into negotiations, and I don't know how often, but often I'm sure there's another agent. Well, do you want that agent to be somebody that's been a real estate agent for 3 months or 6 months, or would you rather have them be an agent that's been there for 10 years, right? It makes everybody's jobs easier. Now imagine that your clients have guns and bullets. I think it's terrible that we're not funding our deputies at a point where they're staying and that the high-quality, long-term deputies are here. With that being said, once you give those raises, you got to fund it. And so my thought, is that it takes development and growth. And I would imagine that's, nice on your ears. That's what you guys promote and do. Like I mentioned earlier, between the city of Merced and UC Merced, there's a tremendous amount of open space. I would imagine someday that the intersection of Bellevue and G Street is going to be the most important intersection that's not along the 99 corridor. And so as we grow our economy, and we do some industrial and commercial, as well, then those jobs and those wages generate revenue, and those revenues will be able to pay for the increase that we need to give to our deputies.
Okay, so fund the Sheriff's Department through growth. Okay, Mr. Cervantes, the Merced Sun-Star recently reported that unemployment was at its lowest level in many years. However, according to a recent survey, more than 20,000 Merced County residents commute out of Merced County every day for work. How are you better suited than your opponents to create a more business-friendly climate so that good-paying jobs are created here at home?
Now, here's one of the interesting lessons you learn in politics. Now, the Sun-Star says something that is considered factual, which is we have the lowest unemployment rate we've had in years. Technically true, but the numbers say that it's still double-digit unemployment rate that we're facing here in this county, which is almost double the size of what California state averages. So on that note, I would say that I am one of the 20,000 commuters because I work in Stanislaus County, so understand. I would love to be able to work within the county. As a matter of fact, when I go take my father out on trips, he always wants to make sure that when we come get our gas, that we drive back into Merced County to buy stuff there instead of sending our income, to our neighboring counties. I think part of the plan really has to come down to, and this is where District 4 plays an important role, is how we're going to, invest in future development in that particular area. It's one of the few areas where you would still see potential for increasing the sphere of influence for the existing communities, trying to bring some industry there. Because what it's going to take, let's think, for example, let's combine the populations of Delhi, Hilmar, and Gustine, for example. You got over 20,000 people there, almost 10% of the entire county's population. And most of them, if you talk to the average resident, they're taking a lot of their business to Newman and to Turlock. They're spending their money over there because we haven't done enough to invest in industry here and to our small business owners for that matter. As a matter of fact, our own school district in Delhi has kind of taken the mantra of saying, promoting this message, you know what, shop local. We need you to support local businesses here. So as far as that is concerned, I think, again, part of the idea is that we need to invest more in the northern portion of the county in terms of development.
Thank you. Mr. Mobley.
We've got a diamond in the rough here in Merced County. We have the people, the resources to have a dynamic economy, but it goes back to public safety. We have to be able to protect the citizens and the property in order for it to create an environment that will attract businesses. Infrastructure also. We have to have better roads so that companies will want to do business in Merced County. They see that they can drive their vehicles without having to replace them every year. There's the infrastructure, things like Castle Air Force Base. I mean, we should be exploiting that to the umpteenth percent. I mean, we ought to attract businesses in and not sell them the land, give them the land. Give them the land, give them some tax advantages for several years, and have them put in the infrastructure as part of the deal. There's so many out-of-the-box thinking that has to happen in Merced County, and that's what I've done in 22 years in the military and 26 years in business to stay alive at times. We have the people, we have the talent. My opponent in my assembly race gave me the moniker Racetrack Jack. I wish we had that racetrack. That would have infused millions of dollars of tax revenue into this county. Walmart Distribution Center. Why didn't we get that? There's a small core of environmentalists. We can have a great environment. We can take care of the environment, but at the same time, we can use the land that we have to our advantage. We should have that racetrack. We should have the Walmart Distribution Center. Castle it has the best instrument runway in the world. I know, I've landed there thousands of times.
Well, how are you better suited than your opponents to create that environment?
Because I am in business in Merced. I have hired people. I know what it's like to work with the state and city government and the environmental regulations and all the other regulations that are hampering us developing business and are driving businesses out of this state.
Fair enough. Mr. Prado.
Well, I mean, if it all comes down to just common sense, if you improve the quality of life of people here in this county, and you create communities that have, success, that have safety, that has great education, that just all falls into line. Businesses come flocking. If you build it, they will come. You need to invest in the infrastructure, team up with local utilities, and get businesses and plots ready to go with communication, with sewage. That's all common sense. You create a great environment, and you keep your residents happy, you keep them safe, and businesses are guaranteed to come. Simple.
Thank you. Mr. Pereira.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword that we live with, right? We have two things we need to do. We need to clean up, the violence. We need to clean up the vagrancy. We need to help the homeless. And most people think of the homeless all as the same. But if you go and talk to them, there's a big difference. There's some people that can't get traction in their lives, and they're homeless because of that. But they don't want to be homeless. And so, we need to facilitate getting them some mental health help and things. And then secondly, there's a group of people that we think are homeless, but really they're vagrants. They're just hanging out on the streets, living a lifestyle that they want. And those need to be encouraged to move on. And the reason, that sounds a little harsh, but they're taking away my rights and your rights and the people in Merced County's rights to enjoy our downtown, to enjoy our parks, feel safe and letting our kids go out and play. And so we need to do that. Then, once that happens, then we work, well, in conjunction, but I mean, as that's happening, we work on bringing better and jobs into the area. The UC is has the ability to attract industry. When you watch the news and you see names of companies and they're going across the little ticker on the bottom of Fox Business or whatever news channel you watch, they're companies that would come to Merced and would like to tie in with UC Merced, but we don't offer them and their employees a community that has them coming and wanting to live here. People come and stay at the Bear Creek Inn as they're interviewing at the UC, and they can't walk to downtown Merced just a few blocks because it's not safe. Well, you know, we've got to fix that. The other thing is that I believe at some point in time, if we develop it that way, the ACE train will have come to fruition at some point. We'll have people commuting to Merced.
Okay, and how are you better suited than your opponents to get this done?
Well, one, I have the vision, and two, being a businessman, having a dairy, a ranch, filing for permits, being under the thumb of government regulation. I understand how all that hampers what we do, and so I think I can work on fixing that.
Fair enough, fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Ford. Yeah, approximately 20,000 people commute out of Merced County every day for work. So how are you going to provide a more business-friendly climate to create good-paying jobs here at home?
Well, some of the commute you're not going to change. A lot of people, it's lifestyle is the reason they commute. They find a community that they want to live in, and because of the cost of living now, most families are dual income. So one spouse is at a local job, and the other one is commuting out. My family included. When my wife and I first got married, I was trying to develop our business. She was in the medical field and worked out of Modesto in a lab. But I know a lot of the people who live in Gustine live there because of the lifestyle, a quiet community, farm community, and that's what they want. But the jobs, the good-paying jobs, aren't there, so they have to commute out. There's a lot of potential in Merced County. The medical field is wide open, and especially now with the Affordable Care Act, a lot of people have insurance. We've got to be able to attract those businesses to Merced County. Merced County is underserved. The population's here, but the services aren't here. And we have to try to attract doctors, medical labs, medical facilities, clinics that are good-paying jobs. And I think that we can do that by encouraging, well, public safety obviously is going to be part of the reputation of Merced County is not good at this point, and the only way we're going to make it better is to get a hold of the criminal element and get a better reputation so that we can provide a safe environment for these businesses to locate and feel comfortable in our communities, and then we can develop their better paying jobs from there.
And how are you better suited at doing this than your opponents?
Well, I've been in all forms of government, from recreation, city council, planning commission. I know most of the government officials personally, and the processes that it takes to get infrastructure grants. We've worked with the State of California Economic Development Department, who is more than willing to come in and help out. If you've got a prospect or a company that's interested, you can call down their representatives that will help. If you can get a letter of intent, they'll come in and they'll put up money for infrastructure, sewer lines, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Mobley, the TEP, Transportation Expenditure Plan, which would add 1/2 cent sales tax for roads. This would probably be on the ballot in November for voters to decide. The tax would be for 30 years and would raise $500 million. According to the most recent information, 5% would be earmarked for public transportation, such as the bus. 20% would go to alternative transportation methods, such as bike paths, and 1% to administrative salaries. 50% of the tax would go to regional projects, which would be decided by the Merced County Association of Governments. And I think it's important to note that our association has not taken a position on this tax. Do you support the tax, and if so, why? And if not, why not?
I can't support the tax. I understand the impetus behind it, but I think the money is there. I think we just need to get it. We need to work with Adam Gray. We need to work with Anthony Cannella and get the money from the state that I think that we're not getting. It seems like every time that there's a problem in the county governments, in the state governments, it's solved, and the solution that's proposed is another tax. I think it's death by 1,000 cuts. We need to look at our budgetary process and, again, reevaluate and have our priorities, public safety and infrastructure, and make those two our top priorities in our budgetary process. The way that this is being sold is it's $500 million for roads. It's already been identified, excuse me, by the county roads department as being almost inconsequential. There's a quote from some of those people that say that it's not going to make that big a difference. The part about being a self-help county, only about 40% of that money is going to be matched. So it's really not going to raise that much money for roads and sidewalks, which is what we need. So I just, it's attractive to go out and say, okay, it's just half a cent. Well, it's half a cent here. It's half a cent for that. It's another $200 for cops. And I think the money's there. We just need to make sure that our priorities are correct and that we got to look at our salaries for our elected officials. And we got a psychiatrist making $660,000 in Merced County. We just need to go through the budgetary process and look at each line item and make sure we're not wasting money, make sure we're having money go where it needs to go. And I think that the money is there to do what it is we need to do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Prado.
Well, if the people had a say on where and how the money is spent, if there's 100% transparency, I guarantee you that tax wouldn't have been an issue. I wouldn't mind chipping in a little extra to help the roads and sidewalks and safe paths to school for our kids. I don't mind. But most of the time, that's not the case. We raise taxes, and people tell us, oh, we're going to raise this tax, but you can't know where it's going to go. It's going to go somewhere. We just can't tell you. So, if there's 100% transparency and my community has to say where that money is spent and how it's spent, I don't mind. But if that's not the case, then no, I don't support it.
Thank you. Mr. Pereira.
I have not decided where I stand on the tax yet either. The reasons why are kind of twofold. One is we're not doing a very effective job with fixing our roads as it is. And so, I can't see people paying more money to get the same service that we don't appreciate and that I don't think is effective or efficient. And so, as a supervisor, my thoughts is to spend more time in the roads department and find out why. Hold them accountable. They need to answer why they're putting cold patch on that lasts 6 months to a year, and instead of using asphalt that'll last 7 to 10 years or more. And that's just in patching the roads. And so, I think we pay, as citizens, we pay a lot. We pay for the roads already, right? We pay 60 cents a gallon on our fuel. That's supposed to go to our roads. Well, the state hijacks it, and they use that for general fund. So, between the two, I just haven't made a decision yet. If we could spend that money efficiently and effectively, then I would lean towards supporting it.
Thank you. Mr. Ford.
Yeah, the sales tax is continuing to climb, and it seems to be the vehicle that we use to get funding when we need it. It is a broader-based tax, but in the city of Gustine, we passed a half-cent sales tax to provide police protection because we couldn't afford it in our general fund. We're at 8% in Gustine right now. When we get to the point where we're 8.5%, 9%, we're starting to get to the point of the Bay Area where they're at 9.5%, some of them up to 10% sales tax. There needs to be a broader base. We continue in California to narrow our tax base. We keep saying, okay, we're going to have a tax base that's going to provide services, but we only want certain people to pay those taxes. I believe that everybody should pay for the services, and whatever you can afford, whether it's $1 a month or $100 a year. It's costly to live in a small rural county. It costs us more to live there, just like it costs more to live in the city of Gustine. But you choose the lifestyle, and if it's in a county that doesn't have the resources, then the people that live there have to provide the resources. I think a better way to do it, if it could be done, is to lower the sales tax rate and broaden the base. Have it sales tax on everything you purchase, services, food, durable goods. It'll reduce your costs on durable goods, big ticket items, and it won't cost, if you bought $100 worth of groceries, it wouldn't cost you 50 cents more or $1 more. But everybody would participate in providing the services that they demand, and I think that's a fairer way.
So do you support it or not?
The way this one's written, I haven't decided whether I support it because with the RTIF money, the regional transportation funding that came to the county before, unfortunately, probably most of you are from this area, Merced and Atwater, and you see the projects that were done. Well, the city of Gustine got nothing. The city of Dos Palace got nothing. Most of the rural roads have not been fixed. So unless there's a benefit to the rural areas and outside of these major projects, then I wouldn't be able to support it.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes.
I mean, currently my position on this proposal is I want to support it, but there are definitely a lot of red flags. I mean, currently we budget an allocation of about $6 million or so annually for it. And with the decreased costs in fuel for your car, we expect that the allocation is going to be lowered a little bit starting next year. Now, this proposal does offer an opportunity to supplement, and I would hope the intent is to supplement. What tends to happen is you'll pass a tax, and then all of a sudden the burden gets shifted to that particular tax, and all of a sudden you find more money in the general fund to play around with for other things. But I do take the issue of roads very seriously. One, because the people of District 4 demand it, but two, it's probably going to end up being, by the time this election's over, it's going to end up being the highest cost to my campaign just in terms of realignment and getting new tires, because I've been up and down the district this whole time. So, again, I do want to support it, but understanding that already you have 50% allocated just to major regional projects, which clearly the intent here is to invest in projects such as Campus Parkway for UC Merced's 2020 plan, as well as the Merced-Atwater Expressway and the incoming Ferrari Ranch development. That is going to be a contributing factor to our overall economy, and I do want to support that, but I don't see the benefit for District 4 enough as it currently stands. Now, it'll still be up to the 6 cities to decide whether the majority of them want to give you all the privilege of actually voting on this. But I think the current plan as it stands, I just don't see how it benefits my district enough to fully support it.
Fair enough. Thank you. Ernie, we're going to go to you for a question after this next question. Mr. Prado, do you believe in rent control?
I believe rent should reflect the demographic, the income of the area. Because if you don't control the rent, then what's to stop anybody from raising the prices and creating gentrification and moving people out of the area, low-income people? It's happened over and over, time and time again, not specifically in this area, but, bigger cities. It happened when they constructed Highway 99. They took out the Asian community. So, I mean, that was calculated. That was specific. So if we can't control the rent in an area for the people that are not making enough, barely getting by, then it's inhumane.
So you do support rent control then? So if you went out and bought a house, you would want how would you set that rent? I mean, you're saying that
I want the rent to reflect the area, to reflect the community. So I'm not going to go into a impoverished neighborhood and the average rent is about $600-700, and I want to charge $1,200. It's just not realistic. So it should reflect the income of the area.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pereira, do you support rent control?
I do not support rent control.
Thank you. Mr. Ford. It's the shortest answer we got.
No.
No, okay.
No, actually, I wanted to expand on that a little bit. There is programs that provide housing for low income. There's government subsidies for Section 8 housing. There's rent supplements. And I think the rents on a normal basis should reflect the property values. And if you start controlling the rent, you're going to control the property values of the housing that's there. And people that have invested in their houses, whether they're investing in it as a rental income property or they're investing in it for their home, they're depending on that home value being at least stable and hopefully inflating over years to keep up with inflation. Some of them are going to use their home in the future as a retirement, rental income as a retirement. So I don't believe in a rent control.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes.
I kind of get this I understand the nobility behind the intent of rent control, especially seeing how a lot of people in sort of the Bay Area or some of the larger metropolitan areas, the increasing costs of living is just pushing a lot of people out. But I think in particular, the region that we live in, by California standards at least, the cost of living is a lot more reasonable. Again, the intent is honorable, but when things like that, you always get the unforeseen factors or things that don't go your way. In this case, could lead to things like shortages in terms of your housing options. So I would say that currently with rent control in this area, I can't really support that.
Thank you. Mr. Mobley.
No, I'm not. The last thing in the world I want is the government telling me how much I can charge for goods and services. There's plenty of programs that need to be administered wisely for people that have a hard time making their rent payment. We need to do a lot of work on that to make sure qualified people are actually getting that money. But in terms of the government having another say in the free market capitalist system, I'm vehemently opposed to it.
Thank you. So we're going to take a question from our past president, Ernie Ochoa, and you'll have 1 minute to respond. And again, if you hear the bell, you need to complete your thought, that's fine. Ernie?
Thank you, Andy Krodik. Last year, the county passed a groundwater ordinance because of our extreme drought situation. How did you guys feel about the passing of that ordinance, and how do you foresee the agency that is supposed to oversee the ordinance here in our county?
We'll start with Mr. Pereira.
Well, the ordinance that the county passed, I think is necessary. The state has passed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and so our groundwater basin is considered overdrafted or critically overdrafted. And the state has given us till July of 2017 to come up with a plan to make our groundwater basin sustainable, and then gives us an additional 8 years from there to make it sustainable. And so we can't just continue to drop wells and pump water. And if we don't do some groundwater recharge, we're gonna eventually dry up. I mean, we don't know what the rainfall is going to be. We may be in a season of 20 or 50 years where rainfall is less than normal. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cripple our economy if we don't take care of the economy we have. So the MID and and the county are kind of the two lead agencies that are going to map that plan, and I think they're both good agencies to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Ford?
Yeah, the Groundwater Sustainability Act was necessary. The ordinance that was passed, and I'm in the ag industry, and my customers were drilling wells as fast as they could drill them out of desperation. When the water was cut off, it's either go out of business or drill a well and try to irrigate your crops. But the discussion was, even the guys that were drilling the wells, is we can't keep this up. We're going to destroy this. We're going to destroy ourselves from within. But what that ordinance did do is it stopped the development of agriculture or ground that was not being farmed. The investors coming in, taking swaths of land that was never farmed, drilling wells, planting almond orchards that were, and it's not sustainable, and they were using the water from the existing farmers by sucking it all out. The CCID is our irrigation district over there, and we are also part of the federal district, and we have Merced out of Stevenson, and we have MID. The county would probably be the lead agency, but these CCID is aggressively pursuing these groundwater recharge. They have a project already on the books that they're working on using Los Banas Creek as a recharge into the aquifers, and the other districts are also working on it too. So there'll be a joint powers agreement between the county and these other irrigation districts, and the irrigation districts are better suited because they already have been working on these for several years, and they have the engineers and the technology to pursue it.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes?
I think the decision on Groundwater Sustainability Act and, of course, the ordinance that was passed was inevitable. I think it's just one of those decisions that eventually you have to make, considering the future, the long-term ramifications if you continue to deplete the existing aquifers. So in this instance, I figure, for some people, they felt it came a little too late. but at least someone took action on it. Now with the sustainability plan that's coming into effect that is mandated by the state, you're going to have to work, in tandem with the other supervisors to ensure that and of course with agricultural leaders and your average Joe, to ensure that we can have a reliable water supply for years to come. Now, I can understand why a lot of people try to drill the wells because they needed to keep their crops alive. And that's business. That's the nature of business on that matter. So I think one of the other aspects of being a supervisor that doesn't get talked about enough is the matter of advocacy. And having someone that you can trust is going to be able to advocate for you at the state, the federal, possibly even the international level to say that, we're suffering in terms of the groundwater. We need more surface level allocations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mobley.
This is a state-mandated response to a situation that has been created by government. We should never have been in this situation. Yeah, we'll come up with a plan, and we'll do the best that we can to ensure that we have an adequate, sustainable water supply. But we have to work to with Adam, with Anthony Cannella, with Costa, whoever wins that seat, we have to reorganize the Environmental Protection Agency. They're the ones that are mandating that all this water that should be captured for years. We should have had more dams years ago. We haven't built a dam since the 70s. That's ridiculous. With the amount of people coming into the state, we should have foreseen the need for reliable water. Yeah, we've been in a drought for a few years, but we should have had the water backed up for years. This whole situation has been created and foisted upon us by the federal government, and we need to get somebody that can work with those people and stick their nose in it and change the problem.
Thank you. Mr. Prado.
I personally am on a water well. I don't own crops. I use it to live. Why should I run out of water because someone that has a lot of money that can go in and buy land, pump out water, and move it off wherever they please? Why should I be the one suffering? I'm conserving my water. I'm doing my best. I'm very, very conservative with my water because I know how precious water is. So why aren't we holding other people to the same standards? I truly believe if we want to fix this whole water issue, we need to get rid of the old law that we had in California where someone has water rights. Who are you to own water? This water is for everyone. This water creates and sustains life. So the whole water right notion needs to go. We need to all be responsible and look out for each other. So, for example, the legislation that passed to prevent secure the groundwater, that was great. Because, at the end of the day, there's people like me on my street that are on wells that have to, we have to suffer because other people feel like, the water is just something that they can waste.
Thank you. Okay, a quick question, a quick answer maybe, Mrs. Ford. How much money have you raised and who's your biggest contributor?
I would say approximately $7,000, maybe $8,000. Biggest contributor is Silvera Brothers Dairy.
Fantastic, thank you. Mr. Cervantes.
Around $5K, and biggest contributor is a private businessman.
Okay, Mr. Mobley.
I think we've collected about $9,000, and it's numerous individuals. I think the maximum I've gotten has been about $500.
Okay, Mr. Prado.
Total about $400, and these are all contributions from friends and family.
Okay, Ms. Pereira.
I've raised $24,800 and about $5,000 in in-kind donations above that. And my largest contributor is Rick Kirby.
Great. Ernie, you have another question?
Thank you, Andy. I'd like to get a question from the audience. How about this side? I'd like to start on this side of the room. Anybody have a question on this side? Okay. So Robert Delina.
I have two questions real quick, Andy. One of them's very, very straightforward. There was a lot of talk about wasteful spending at the county level. Have any of the candidates actually read the budget, the existing budget, line by line?
We'll start with you, Mr. Cervantes.
Not line by line. I've read the overview, but not line by line. But I take that as a challenge, and I will take you up on it. So I'll make sure to get that done before the primary is over.
I have attempted to go through it line by line, but trying to do it on a tablet computer is a daunting task. But I have done enough research to know that there's money there to be adjusted and to reprioritized.
Mr. Prado?
Yes, I have, and it's very vague. If you check out the county budget, it's pretty vague, and it shouldn't be that way. If there's a lot of appropriations going to general funds, and they don't tell you what that's for. What are these general funds for? Are they for ink? Are they for pens? Are they for papers? Are they for washing your car? We need to be specific. If I give you $20 to go to the supermarket and bring me a gallon of milk, I don't want you to come back with $1 and change and say it was general funds for the milk. We need to be specific, and that's how we clamp down on our spending. We hold our supervisors responsible. We hold them accountable for each and every dime that's spent.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Burr?
I have a copy of the budget. I picked it up when the county approved it at the supervisors meeting. It's about that thick, and I have not read every line, but I have been going through it.
Mr. Ford?
No, I don't have a copy of the complete budget. I had a copy of the overview, which is a basic funding levels. The only way on most budget items, as Ramona brought up, is you have to be in the discussions. You have to sit there and meet with the department heads and what their budget's for to be able to analyze where the money's being spent and how much is being spent. I've been involved in a lot of budgets with the city of Gustine, and it is important who you elect as a supervisor to go through these budgets, because there is a lot of waste in government, and the higher up you go, the bigger it gets. Even in the small community of Gustine, your CEO or your city managers, they all have their pet projects, and they all have their policies they want to try to push to you as a council to approve, and it takes your board members to analyze those issues and see if they're really necessary. And if your policies don't match theirs, they need to be directed to put that money in the areas you want.
Great. Thanks.
How about the center of the room here? Anybody have a question here? Okay, Martin?
The homeless issue, how are you going to go about combating that?
The homeless issue, we'll start with Mr. Mobley. How are you going to combat the homeless issue? What's the solution?
Well, I mean, that's the biggest complaint, I think, with the downtown people is what's driving business out. It seems as though that there's probably three categories of people. There's the people that are just they don't know where they are. They don't know who they are. Human life, it has value, and those people need to be taken care of. They need to be analyzed and treated and helped to become as productive as they can be. You've got another group of people that have been turned out through divorce, business failure, whatever. They find themselves in a situation that they don't want to be in, and mentally or they don't know what to do. We have to help those people get readjusted and with short-term assistance, maybe housing and retraining so that they can become productive citizens. Then you have a final group of people, vagrants, that they do not want to conform to anything. They don't want to be they just want to do what they want to do. They want to panhandle on the side of the road. Those people need to be policed. They need to be
So your solution is to police them, or what's your...
to enforce the panhandling laws, to encourage them to leave the area. No camping, we need to enforce the no camping laws. I'm not for establishing an outpost on the edge of town for them to settle in.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Mr. Prado?
I refuse to believe that someone chooses to be addicted to drugs. This is a disease that we're dealing with. I refuse to believe that someone just wants to live on the streets and not have a care about life and the people around them. We need to tackle the underlying issues, which are drug addictions, mental health. And, with about $200,000, you can home about 20 homeless people with the caseworker for a whole year. And if we fight the root problem and we get these people the services that they need, we're creating an environment where people can succeed, where they can move ahead and not have to face these difficult issues of drug addiction and crime and poverty. I think it's unrealistic to criminalize poverty. It's ridiculous. So we need to fight the root cause. No one wakes up one morning and says, I just want to shoot needle of heroin. There's underlying issues, and we need to address those.
Thank you. Mr. Pereira?
I think addressing the homeless issue is kind of a threefold program. One, the county is responsible for mental health and its services in our county. So one, we need to become more effective there. There's plenty of plan to take the old Merced Community Medical Center and kind of make that a place where we can start administering those services and bring guys in off the street and women and kind of get them the help they need. Secondly is the people that aren't mentally ill that are homeless. Sometimes it's situational homeless. Somebody loses a job. Somebody gets divorced. There's those reasons, and I think the faith-based community that we have in Merced is really well suited to helping those people, and I think we need to help them with resources to get that done. And then the third element is the vagrant and the criminal activity. And I'm a Christian with a big heart, and I think we need to take care of people. But when you're living outside of society and you're going to be a criminal, you just need to move on.
Thank you. Mr. Ford?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo some of the statements that were already made, but the fact that there is people that do choose to live on the street, and I know a couple of them personally that live here in Merced that are from Gustine, and I happened to run into one of them the other day that after a planning commission meeting when I was filling up with fuel, and I thought, okay, they're panhandling, they're going to come and ask me for money. And the guy walks up and, hey, how's it going, Rich? I haven't seen you in a long time. And there was rumor over there that he had died. This guy is a talented guy, and he actually worked in the building inspection business and has some skills. And I don't know, he lost his job, and he just gave up on society and decided he didn't want the responsibilities. And so he lives on the street and panhandles. But those are the kind of people that you can't make it easy for them to do that, and society is supporting them by handing them the money and making their life easy when you can. In fact, he asked me for a couple bucks before I left, but those are the issues that can be addressed right away, and like has been pointed out, they have to be pushed out of the area. The other ones, we need a basic support system that can get them back on their feet, and if it is drug addiction, help them get clean and get back into the work society if they're willing to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Cervantes?
So I think when it comes to dealing with issues like this, you generally start with the positive before you go towards the negative. In this particular instance, I know, for example, we're looking at a project that's planned to be finished. I forget exactly where the location is in Merced, but I think it's called the Esperanza Project, something along those lines, where they're trying to provide some housing, some stability for the homeless, because stability is part of what assists the people, at least the people that are looking for a hand up as opposed to a handout. So our first mode of action is to address the needs of, whether you're talking about homeless veterans or homeless people. Even I remember when we had the 2007 crash, a lot of people lost their jobs. It could have been your friends, your family, your neighbors. Those people didn't ask to be homeless. It's just the luck, the misfortune of the draw in this case. So for those folks, and it's not always a matter of mental health and drug addiction. Some people just got a bad deal. So to help those people, then when you can help those people, you can just go after, the people that have been very clear that they just don't care about the law.
Thank you. Okay, final question, then we'll do our closing.
Thank you, Andy. I see Gail McCullough over here, a longtime member of our association. We haven't heard from her in a while, so I'd like to give her the floor.
First off, I want to thank all of you for coming. You've done a beautiful job. It's obvious that you've really researched on the subject. I'm very concerned about your feelings about the fast terrain issue. It seems with all the needs in this county and this valley, is this really a necessity to pursue this? And if so, how are we going to finance it?
Mr. Prado.
Well, if you take a look at the existing cities like Stockton that has the ACE train, I mean, are they a poster of success? You know, they're looming in bankruptcy. So I strongly feel that if we want to attract those types of transportations, we need to focus on ourselves first. We need to make sure we have a great quality of life. And I guarantee you, if our neighbors, if our residents of Merced County have a great quality of life and access, you know, to health care and access to education, and I guarantee you those will come. They will come begging, knocking on our doors to let them in. But in the meantime, we need to stop looking at other people's backyards and focus on our own, because we have a lot of issues we need to address here. So in order to get the ACE train, in order to get high-speed rail and all these cool things that the future can promise us, we need to make sure we are in a good shape first.
Thank you, Mr. Pereira.
I think the high-speed rail has, maybe when it started out was a decent idea, moving people, less cars on the highways. However, what's happened is it's turned into the high-speed boondoggle. And I just don't see that it could be economically viable, and I think it's so large, the cost that we're going to have to pay in taxes to support it is just unreasonable. We don't even know what it's going to cost. You know, when Obamacare was passed, it's like, well, we have to pass it to know what's in it, and with the high-speed rail, we have to support it to know what it's going to cost. I just don't think that that's smart sense, and you know, it's not coming to Merced. It's going around us now. And so if it was coming and it would create some jobs, I think that would be great. But in its current state, I think it's a bad idea.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I think the high-speed rail was a mistake as soon as they picked the route. They had three options on those routes. I don't know how they decided to cut through the valley and take it through prime farmland. But they already have the easements on I-5. They could have run it down there if they were going to do it. And if their goal was to go from San Francisco to L.A. The cost is going to be outrageous. The speed is down from its original estimations. And Amtrak provides a service for commuting it's a good service, and it's reasonably priced. People can afford it. It travels at 80 miles an hour. I've ridden it dozens of times from Merced to Hanford when our kids lived down there. And I would ride it all the time. That train could actually be sped up if it was, they're using freight tracks, so they have to slow down for the freight trains and they have the right of way and such things. But if you improve the Amtrak, you could provide a similar service. Maybe it takes you 20 minutes longer, but it's still a better service than spending billions of dollars for something that probably people won't be afford to ride when it gets done.
Thank you, Mr. Cervantes.
You know, when the bond was initially passed, even I'll admit was kind of excited about it, because I'm excited about a lot of things, obviously. And really, a little part of me still holds out hope, even though, as we know, the costs keep increasing, the litigation continues to pile up, and now all of a sudden they pulled the wool over our eyes. It's not even coming through Merced in the current state that it's in. I would say, you know, again, I still have that little bit of me that really feels that we should invest in this, only because I think that alternative modes of transportation are going to be vital for our economic future. Simply expanding a highway isn't going to get it done. You expand that, you only incentivize more cars, more traffic, more pollution, and that's quality of life issue. You know, growing up having to suffer through the air quality that we have as a child with asthma, and having suffered an asthma attack that landed me in the hospital once, I do take that issue very seriously. But overall, I can understand why the skepticism continues to mount, because the plan just keeps getting tougher and tougher.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Moley.
I have never been in favor of high-speed rail. I think it's been a boondoggle, an albatross around the neck of the state of California since its inception. That much money for something that's going to be a dagger into the heart of the economy of the Central Valley that will never pay for itself. The parameters that it was set up are almost felonious. They're cockeyed. They're for 60-year-old technology. It's not even maglev. It is a boondoggle that should never. We need to stick a knife in it while its eyes are still closed. And before it rears its ugly head. When they did the Transcontinental Railroad, the guy that started that said when we drive the first spike, they can't stop it. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to drive the first spike so that they can get enough momentum going to where it can't be stopped.
Great, thank you. We're now going to do closing remarks, and before we do those, I want to say thank you. I've been very impressed with the level of your knowledge and your answers. 1 minute closing remarks, just ask for the vote. Why should we elect you? And whoever gets elected, we hope that you'll come back and visit us. 'Cause we want a relationship with our members of the Board of Supervisors. So we'll start with closing remarks with Mr. Pereira. You have a minute.
Well, we've heard a lot of good ideas up here today, and, I think, we understand, what's going on. I believe that I have a vision that is not only a good one, but it's practical, it's incremental, and so I hope that you'll take a look at that. I spent my life building relationships with people, and I think that's what it takes to get stuff done. When you become a board member, it's not my way or the highway, right? There's 5 people up there, and they have to come to a consensus as what's best for Merced County. I think, of course, we have some immediate issues, right? Roads, public safety, homeless and vagrancy. We didn't even talk about what the homeless cost our economy. The last 20% of your income is where most of the profit is. And when we go around our district, we find that the people are going out of town, and so we need to bring them back to Merced.
Thank you. Mr. Ford.
Yes, I believe that I'm the best candidate for the county supervisor seat. I have the experience in both private sector and in government. I've dealt with government budgets and handled the tough times and bad economies. And we watched the housing when it started in the city of Gustine. When the commuters started coming in, we were getting a lot of inflow from the Bay Area. And at first, when it started coming our way, I thought, there's no way that people are going to drive 75 or 80 miles each way to work and live in our community. The first group that came in was people that were wanting to relocate. They wanted to raise their family in a small community, and then they moved over here looking for a job and actually became participants in our community. As the next wave started coming, when I ran for mayor, I went to the new subdivisions and introduced myself and talked to people, asked them what brought them to Gustine, what brought them to our small community. And every single one of them answered cheap housing. Now, cheap housing to them and cheap housing to our local economy are two different things. I guess I started, I'm not going to have near enough time to make this statement, but anyway, we need a steady growth rate, not out of control. We need to keep our housing values up so that we can keep our tax bases going so we can provide the basic services to our communities.
Great, thank you. Mr. Cervantes.
One of the most important parts about being in any sort of public service is that your main goal is to improve the quality of life for every single individual, every single resident. Now, I'm running and saying to you all that I am the most qualified candidate because I've dealt with a 7-member board, which is, as a school board, we are the largest elected body in all of District 4. The school district is one of the largest employers in District 4. We have a multi-million-dollar budget that is partly my responsibility to oversee. I understand how to manage relationships, whether I was the president of the board previous to the last election cycle or when I was made president again by a completely different board after the last election cycle. I know how to build consensus with people, and I know how to get stuff done. And I'm really hoping to bring that experience and public servitude to you all here on the County Board of Supervisors. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mobley.
Probably the biggest reason to vote for me is the fact that the smartest woman that I know will be advising me every day, and that's my wife. So it's a 2-for-1 package. But I have the capability of managing large numbers of people with diverse opinions and coming through with a beneficial end game. If you can take somebody who can take an Italian, a Frenchman, a German, a Pole, and an Englishman and an American aviator and focus them in on accomplishing a single mission, that's a key characteristic that we need in the county. In my business, we have, at one time, we had 9 different ethnicities, different cultures, different languages, different philosophies, but we molded them into a profitable organization. I think I have those skills to think outside the box and to lead the county.
Thank you. Mr. Prado.
I want to represent my district because for far too long, all the issues that you hear about in the county does not affect our supervisors. You cannot be affected when you're away from the areas that are, affected by crime. Anything that you hear about that's wrong with our county, I grew up in that. I am personally affected with that, with drugs, gang violence, and poverty. So I understand what needs to be done. And I asked you to ask your supervisors if they're willing to make a self-sacrifice for the better of our community. I want to cut pay for our supervisors, for our top elected officials by 50%. I want you guys to see who really has their heart in the right place, who's ready to make that change. We are people that are serving our community. It shouldn't be the other way around. Okay, you need to remember the people that you elect are working for you. I want to be represented. I want to be represented by someone that understands what needs to be done. And hopefully on June 7th, I can have the opportunity to serve my community and do what's right.
Okay, that concludes our debate this morning from Merced County Association of Realtors. How about a round of applause for our candidates?